Yo, what is going on, you guys? It's your boy King Sanders here. We are back with another day of sports betting. This is going to be for Sunday, November 27th slate of NBA action, man. I'm super excited to dive into it. We finally have a full slate on. We have a 9-game slate on. So I guess not technically full, but whatever you want to look at it as. A lot more games than what we had yesterday, which, that one definitely hurt us a little bit, but we'll go ahead and bounce back. I know that we will. We finished 1 and 2, and we'll talk about those here in just a minute. But with all this value here on this slate, we'll go ahead and dive into it. So, before we go ahead and dive into it, I did just want to go ahead and say that we are still currently on the road to 9,000 subscribers. So if you guys are new, make sure that you guys do like, comment, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you guys know whenever I post. We're only about 200 subscribers away. So make sure that if you guys are new, make sure that you guys are subbed. We will be doing a giveaway, of course, once we end up hitting that 9,000 subscribers. So make sure that you guys are subbed. Next, I did just want to go ahead and give a quick shout out here to all of our members here on the channel. Thank you guys so much for everything that you guys do. And thank you guys so much for giving me such a small channel, such a big chance, as I always say. It truly does mean the absolute world to me. So much more than you guys will ever know. So, before we go ahead and dive into today's plays, we'll go ahead and do a quick recap as of yesterday. So we ended up going 1 and 2, like I said. So we had our kill shot play of the day. Luka Doncic under 9.5 rebounds versus Toronto at minus 135. He started off this game pretty good, finishing with 3 in the first quarter. It definitely made me a little bit nervous, but then in the second and third quarter, he really only had 1 or 2. He does finish it off pretty strong, finishing right at 7, so it made me sweat a little bit there with, in like the last 4 or 5 minutes. But it wasn't really too much of a sweat. It ended up working out for us. Then we had our Spurs plus 3.5 here versus the Lakers at minus 110. Unfortunately, Jakob Poeltl does end up getting injured in that game. And I think that the Spurs were pretty much in control of that game for the first half of it. And then, Poeltl gets injured. And then everything just kind of starts to fall apart for the Spurs. They tried so hard to cover for us there at the end. They were just really going up and down the floor, shooting a lot of shots. But they ended up losing by 5. It is what it is. Barely missing that one. Then we had our added play. We had Josh Giddey over 6.5 rebounds here versus Houston at minus 129. This one was, it was just a bad read, I guess. I definitely thought that Josh Giddey would be able to get to 7 assists, and he didn't even come close. He finishes with just 3. He had absolutely 0, the same amount as me and you in the first half. There's just nothing you can do about it. And then, of course, if you look at the leans that I had SGA over in points, which I had mentioned in yesterday's video. That one ends up hitting. Jalen Green over in points. That one ends up hitting. Alperen Şengün over in rebounds. Dude almost had 20. That one ends up hitting. KPJ over in assists. His line was 5.5. He finishes with 6. That one hits. And then Giddey PRA, which I didn't take a look at the exact number, but I know he had a decent amount of rebounds, and I know he scored the ball a lot. So that one probably hit too. So I literally had almost every single lean correct. I made the wrong pick. That's just, at the end of the day, made the wrong pick. Ended up losing just a little bit of juice there. But let's go ahead and dive into today's plays. Let's try to make some of that money back. Before we dive into it, I did also want to say, for some reason, there's still not very many lines up, and I don't know why. But I did find a couple plays that I ended up liking. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So for our kill shot play of the day, we're going to be taking the Grizzlies and the Knicks over 231.5 here at minus 110 odds. Now, I like this for a multitude of reasons. First being, the Knicks are coming off of 2 129-point performances. Now, I don't expect them to score 129 once again, but they are definitely capable of doing it. They are starting to get back into the groove of things. Before that, they were really struggling on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that they are starting to turn it back around. They looked really comfortable in those last 2 games, and I think that they can have that happen once again. Also, New York, they do average 14 more points per game at home, and obviously it is going to be at the Garden, so I think that it is a really good spot here for the Knicks. They score a lot more at home than they do on the road. Also, Memphis is 8th when it comes to points per game. They're one of the best scoring teams in all of basketball, top 10. I'll definitely be taking my odds with that one. Also, in the last 3 games, the Knicks, they do allow the 3rd most points per game to opposing teams. So they have not been a very good defense at all in the last 3 games. And Memphis, they haven't been much better. They've allowed the 8th most points per game to opposing teams in the last or over the course of the season. So I think it's a pretty good spot here. Both defenses haven't necessarily looked tremendous, and when it comes to being at home for the New York Knicks, they do average 14 more points per game. That's a pretty big margin there. Also, New York, they do allow the most points per game at home in the NBA. Obviously, the New York Knicks, they do have an iconic stadium, and a lot of players have tendencies to go off in there. So hopefully we can see some more of that. Also, New York in their last 3 games, they are 26th in defensive efficiency. Once again, one of the worst defensive efficiencies in all of basketball in their last 3. This New York Knicks defense has not been good whatsoever, and I think that this Memphis team is going to be able to abuse that, and I think that Memphis is going to be able to give a little bit of leeway because the Knicks are a much better scoring team at home as well. Also, as a home team this year, Knicks are 6-2 to the over. Cashing 75% of the time. I like our odds for that one. So hopefully it does end up working out for us for our kill shot play of the day. Memphis and New York over 231.5 at minus 110 odds. Now for our second play of the day, this is my other lock. I almost made this one my kill shot play of the day, but I decided to go with the over. But we're going Miles Turner under 8.5 rebounds here versus the Clippers at plus 100 odds. Now, there's a lot of books that do actually have this at even odds at minus 110, stuff like that. But I'm just going to go ahead and take the plus odds. I think it's a pretty good spot. Over the last 7 games, the Clippers, they have allowed the 9th fewest rebounds per game to opposing centers. So they have really not allowed a whole lot of rebounds to that center position. Also, Turner has gone under in 3 straight games, and he has gone under in 4 out of his last 5. So he really, he's been scoring the ball really, really well. But one thing that he hasn't done well is rebound. I know that he's known for his rebounding, but he hasn't really been doing that here recently. And he is going to have a Zubac matchup on him, who's an inside center and a great rebounder. And we have seen him have plenty of that here recently. He has had to go against Nicholas Claxton, and he ended up going under. He had to go against Rudy Gobert. He ended up going under. And he ended up playing against Orlando twice, which obviously they have a bunch of tall big men. And he ended up going under in those games too. So I think it's a pretty good spot here. Clippers are also the 3rd slowest pace in the entire NBA. Shouldn't see a ton of shots going up for either side of the ball. But even if they do, here's another stat that I really like. The Clippers, they do allow the 4th fewest defensive rebounds per game. And why this is significant is because if Zubac isn't allowing a lot of rebounds on that defensive end of things, Miles Turner, he's a very outside-oriented player. He loves to shoot threes, and with that being said, it's going to take long rebounds and just to basically fall into his lap in order for him to be able to hit the over on the offensive side of things. He is also averaging he's only gotten 19 rebounds all year long on offense. So he's only gotten 19 offensive rebounds all year long. He definitely hasn't been getting a lot, so I don't see why anything would change with that during this game. So I think it's a pretty good spot to target for our second play of the day, so we're going to be riding with it. Hopefully it ends up working out for us. Miles Turner under 8.5 rebounds here versus the Clippers at plus 100 odds. Now for our third and final play of the day, we're going to be taking Draymond Green under 14.5 points plus rebounds here versus Minnesota at minus 120 odds. Now, the main reason that I like this is because, surprisingly, Minnesota has really started to turn it around on the defensive end of things. In the last 3 games, Minnesota allows the 4th fewest points per game to opposing teams just in general. So they are one of the best defenses in basketball over the last 3 games. And they are 4th when it comes to defensive efficiency in the last 3 games. Both these stats are screaming that this team is starting to trend in the right direction defensively, so I think it's a pretty good spot. Also, Minnesota, they do, in their last 7 games, they do allow the 9th fewest points per game to opposing power forwards and the 6th fewest rebounds per game to opposing power forwards. All of that being said, I think it's a really tough matchup too. Obviously, we know for Minnesota, they're going to be running two bigs out there with Karl-Anthony Towns, with Rudy Gobert, and at the three, they're going to have just some long. They're just going to have some players that love to get rebounds. So I think it's going to be a really tough spot here. Also, Draymond Green on the road this year is 6-2 to the under. So I think, with that being said, history is on our side, cashing 75% of the time. And I know this is a little side narrative, it's kind of out there, but this could be a Wiggins revenge game. I mean, he is coming from the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he is now on the Golden State Warriors. He may be taking some shots away from them. We all know Steph Curry loves to shoot the ball, and Klay Thompson can get hot at any stretch of the imagination, just whenever. So, all those factors, they can take away shots from a guy like Draymond Green, who doesn't shoot the ball a lot anyway, and I just don't really foresee him scoring a lot today, and I think that he's going to have a hard time getting those rebounds, especially with all those tall players off of Minnesota. So I think it's a pretty good spot here for our third and final play of the day. Draymond Green under 14.5 points plus rebounds versus Minnesota at -120 odds. So that is going to do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you guys do like, comment, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you guys know whenever I post. Like I said, we're on the road to 9,000 subscribers. We're just over 200 away, and we will, of course, be doing a giveaway once we end up hitting that 9,000 mark. So make sure that you guys are subbed. But that's going to do it for me. This is King Center signing out. Peace.